Welcome to another free video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to insert blank labels to the top of a mailing label sheet. And this is my introduction to macro programming. Now, you've had this happen before, right? You've got a sheet of mailing labels. You've already used 2 or 3 of them on the top. And you want to be able to have Access start the next label at position 4, let's say. So how do you have Access insert those blank records at the top so the printer skips over them? Well, that's what I'm going to teach you in this lesson, and we're going to learn how to use some macros to do it. One question I'm constantly asked is how you can take a sheet of mailing labels and insert some blank labels at the top. Let's say, for example, you've got those sheets of 30 mailing labels where there's 3 columns of 10 rows each. And you print off, let's say, 5 labels off the top of the sheet. But now you want to go make some more labels and you want to use the same sheet, but there's 5 blank spots at the top. So how do you get access to insert 5 blank spots when you're making your mailing labels? Now, first, I should warn you, only do this if you're using an inkjet printer. You never want to feed a sheet of mailing labels through a laser printer more than once, because laser printers use heat and they heat up the paper or the labels as they go through. That first time through is fine, but that loosens up the glue underneath the labels. And if you use the same sheet of mailing labels 2 or 3 times through a laser printer, those labels can actually peel off inside the printer. I've had that happen to me before and several customers I know. So only do this, only run a sheet of mailing labels through a printer if it's an inkjet printer or, of course, a dot matrix printer if you got one of those. But if you got a laser printer, do not do this. Only use that sheet once. Now, the easy and simple way to do this is to put all of your mailing labels into a separate table and then just manually insert some blank records before the labels that you want to print. Now, if you only got 1 or 2 labels, that's not a big deal. But if you want to insert, let's say, 20, it's a bit of a pain to have to sit there and go, okay, space or some kind of blank character and then enter, space, enter 20 times. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to create a macro to insert any number of blank labels at the top of your label sheet that you want. You type in 7 and it'll insert 7 blank labels. Now, this lesson is a preview of what's to come in my Microsoft Access advanced lessons, where we're going to start covering macros and events in detail. But I figure now I'll give you a bit of a preview as to how exactly macros are going to work in our database. Now, I always keep a blank Access database floating around here, so I'm going to open this up. This is just a database that I have my preferences all set up in. Like, I like overlapping windows instead of tabbed windows and stuff like that. And if you've watched any of my beginner classes, you know all the preferences that I like to set. So the first thing we need is to create a table to store our labels. Now, all we need really, I'm going to do the Avery 5160 labels. And again, that's 3 columns of 10 each. So it's 30 labels per sheet. So I'm just going to put in here, and that'll give you 4 lines of labels. All right, so I'm going to go L1, line 1, right, short text, L2, L3, and L4. All right, if you make your font smaller, you can actually get 5 lines in there, but I think 4 lines is plenty for most labels, right? Let's save this as my label T. All right, primary key defined. If you want a primary key, it doesn't matter. Access will add the auto number for you. We're never going to use it really. Well, we could use it if we want to do some sorting later on, but for now, this is fine. So let's put some sample data in here. I'll switch over to Datasheet View. I'll put myself in, Richard at Rost, 123 Main Street, Cape Coral, Florida, 33993. Line 4 would be blank. If you have a company, we could do like Peter Wilson, A&D Tech, or whatever his company is, 444 Park Avenue, New York, 33, whatever, I don't know what the zip code there is. And another random one, Ann Marks at 777 Beach Street, Fort Myers. Okay, so there's 3 labels. Now, as you can see, there are no blank records at the top, but I just want to put some sample data in here so that we could see what this is going to look like. So let's close this. Let's create our mailing label report real quick. Create labels. Which label are you using? Well, I'm using the Avery 5160, right? That's 3 across. Next. Arial 8-point light. If you stick with the defaults, you get 4 lines of mailing labels. Make your prototype label. I cover this in my Access beginner classes, by the way. So line 1, I'm going to double click on it. Enter. Line 2, enter. Line 3, enter. Line 4. If you don't know how to do this, take my Access beginner classes. Next, what do you want to sort by? We're not going to sort by any of these fields. I want these labels to appear on the sheet in the order in which I enter them. Next. All right, and see the labels as they look printed. What name would you like for the report? Label R, and then finish. Now, sometimes you'll get this. Some data may not be displayed, and this is based on your printer driver. All right, I'm not sure which printer I've selected on my laptop right now, if I have one at all. So you might get this. It basically says there's not enough horizontal space for the number of columns and spacing that you specified. And we could cheat and get rid of this error message in a minute. All right, and it looks fine. Okay, sometimes you'll even get like a second page. All right, let me zoom out here. But I didn't in this case. So I'm going to just cheat to get rid of that message, because if I close this now, every time I open this back up again, right, in print preview, I'm going to get that warning. All right. And again, this is based on your printer driver. But the way you can cheat and get rid of it is just come in here and just get rid of this little extra space at the end there. Now, that's going to throw your labels off just slightly, but they should still fit just fine on the page. And now if I come in here and go to print preview, you can see I don't get that error message. These moved over just slightly to the left. You can play with the margins and the settings in here. If you have a valid printer driver installed, you shouldn't get that message. Okay, I don't think I have a printer installed on this laptop. That's why I'm getting that. But anyway, so now there's my 3 labels. And as you can see, there's no blank spots at the beginning. All right, so I'm going to close this. Now let's go back to the table here. If I want to insert some blank spaces at the top, all right, I want to insert them up here. Now, you really can't do that in Access like you can do in Excel, but you can cut and paste them. So watch this. I'm going to just select these 3 records, cut them out, Control X, like that. Then I can insert some blank records up top here, right? And just press the space character. That'll insert a record, right? Just a space, and then space, and then space, and then space. So now I've got 4 blank labels at the top of my label table, and then just click on this bottom row here and then paste them in, and there's my 3 records again. And now if I close this and go look at the report in print preview mode, there you go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 blank labels. All right. Now, I don't want to have to do that manually. I want to be able to click on a button that says, go ahead and insert those blank records for me at the top of the table. And I just hit the button, type in 4, and it puts 4 blank records in there for me. All right, so how do I do that? Well, let's create a form so that we have a nice interface to work with. I'm going to go to Forms. Let's use a split form. All right, there's a split form. It's got a label at the top, and it's got our data sheet at the bottom. Now, I don't like any of this stuff that it throws in there automatically. So let's go to Design View. And I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. Goodbye. I don't like the formatting and the layout and all that stuff. All right, close that up. Let's go to Design and then Add Existing Fields. And let's bring over L1 through L4. I'm going to click on L1, hold down the Shift key. It'll select L1 through 4, right? It's L1, Shift, L4, let it go. Then click and drag. And again, this is all covered in my beginner lessons, if you don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to delete the labels that come in there and just bring the text boxes right over here, like this. All right, this is what one label is going to look like. And I'll just kind of shorten this up a little bit. All right, there we go. Bring this up, leave a little bit of room in there. Actually, we'll put the buttons over here. Okay, save this. This will be my label F, my label form. I'm going to close it and then open it again. All right, there we go. A little bit big up top here. We can do this. All right. So here's my labels right down here. Now let's make a button to open up that print preview, because this is a pain having to come over here and right click and go to print preview. So let's drop a button right here, Design View, Command button, Report Operations, Preview Report. Label R is the only one we have. All right, View Labels, and then Finish. There's my View Labels button. Save it, close it, open it back up. Okay, View Labels, there they are. Nice and easy. All right, so next let's see how we create a button with a macro in the button to add a new blank record to whatever's on here. Okay, we'll just have it for now. We'll just have it inserted at the bottom. So again, grab a command button, drop it over here. Now this time we're going to cancel the command button wizard. All right, we have our own button here. Now right click on it, go to build event, and then macro builder, and hit OK. Now we're in the macro builder. So here's what I want this macro to do. I want it to go to a new blank record, set L1, line 1, equal to a blank value, or a space, or whatever you want to put there, something, and then that's it, right? And that will insert a blank record at the bottom for me. So I need, the first command is going to be go to record. So drop down your list of commands here, scroll down and find go to record. All right, now there are some options. Now, since you're in a button that is on a form, you don't have to specify the object type and the object name. Object type is like form, table, whatever. And the object name is which form or which table. If you don't specify these, if you're in a macro that's within a form, then you don't have to put those in there. It'll assume the current form. So in this particular case, all I have to do is say which record I want to go to a new record. And that'll assume of the current form. All right, don't worry about what offset is. We'll talk about that later. Once you go to a new record, now I want to set a value in that record. So drop this down and find set value. Now if you look, you won't find set value. All right, it's not in here. And that's because, and I mentioned this in one of the earlier classes, like one of like Expert 12 or whatever, when we did another macro, there are safe and unsafe commands. And to see all of the unsafe commands, you have to click on this button here that says Show All Actions. Now you will see all of the commands in here. Okay, and if you scroll down now, you'll find set value. Set value is considered to be one of those unsafe commands because you can change data with it. And you'll see the little warning message there. Okay, unsafe action. Because if you want to send this database, if you want to put this database on the web and make it public, okay, and have other people download it and use it, if you try to use all safe actions, they won't get any security warning messages or whatever. But if you have unsafe actions in here, it could be potentially harmful. Okay, so they'll get a warning message if they try to run it saying, hey, there's potentially unsafe stuff in this database. Because with macros or with Visual Basic Code, you could do harmful things to the other person's computer. So if you want to try and use all safe actions to get around that, you can, but then you won't be able to use things like set value. So, all right, so what are we setting the value of? All right, well, it's L1. I happen to know it because I just named them. But if you can't remember what it is, just click on the little wizard button over here. That opens up the expression builder. And here's all of the fields that you can work with in that current record and the current form. All right, so just pick L1, all right, or double click on it. There it is, L1. Hit OK. That puts L1 in there. And what expression do you want? I just want it to be a blank value or a space, whatever you want. So inside of quotes, just go quote, quote. Those are double quotes. Or if you want a space, go quote, space, quote. It doesn't matter. A blank record or a blank value like that, an empty string should work just fine. All right, save that, close it, and let's see if it works now. I'm going to close the form, save changes, yes, and reopen it. All right, I'm going to click my button, boom, and there we go. See that? It went to a new record and set L1 equal to a blank value. Now, the record's still dirty, so we may want to go to a new record after that, right? Click, 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 see? That last record is still dirty. So we can fix that by going right-click, Design View, right-click, Build Event, and then just throw another go-to record at the end of this, right? Go-to record, and then new. But this time don't do anything. All right, save it, close it, and let's try it again. Label F. I'm going to get rid of these records here first. Delete all these. Let me get rid of these blanks at the top too. Delete. I turned off, one of the things that I set in my my database template is I turn off delete notifications. You know, when you delete a record, it says, oh, you're about to delete 3 records. Are you sure? I turn that off. All right, just make sure you have a good backup of your data if you're going to do that. I find the delete notifications annoying. All right, click on the button and you go to a new record. Click, click, click. See that? Each time this runs, it inserts a blank record and puts you at the next one. All right, so if I get rid of these and show you that again. Ready? All right, click, see? Click, and I'm ready to insert a new one. And again, if you realize that you've typed in your 3 labels and you want 3 blanks at the top, you have to just select these, cut them out, and then insert your blanks, 1, 2, 3, and then paste them back in here. Now, you can't easily do that cut and paste operation with macros. With VB code you can, but it's getting pretty complicated and it's beyond what I'm going to cover in this lesson. So if you realize you typed in your labels first and then you want to put the blank records at the top, you'll just have to cut and paste like I just showed you. All right, the key would be to run this before you start typing in your labels. Now, how do we get this to loop so that I could, instead of having to click the button 8 times or 16 times, I can just type in 16 and it will insert 16 blank records for me? Well, to do that, we have to use an external macro. In other words, a macro that is not embedded in the form inside that button. It's going to actually show up over here in the navigation pane. All right, so let's delete this button here. Goodbye. I know we did a lot of work, but that's okay. Let's create an external macro that does not live inside this form, but can still do stuff to it, that will do the same thing. All right? And the reason why we have to do this is because then we can use a second macro to run the other macro X times. And you'll see how this works in a minute. It's the only way you can really do loops inside of Access by using macros. For those of you who are familiar with programming, there are for next loops, there's while loops, there's do loops. You can't really do those with a macro, but you can run another macro X times. All right, 4 times, 10 times, whatever value you want. So let's go to create and then macro. Now we're in the macro builder, but we're in an external macro outside the form. Now let's create the same macro we just had. All right, so the first thing is go to record. All right, object type this time is going to be a form. Whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. Object type is going to be form. Object name is the only one we have. Record is going to be new. So now this macro knows to go to form, label F, new record. All right. Set value is next, but we have to turn on our show all actions, right? Set value. Item is going to be the full name of the field that we have to set the value of. In this case, it's forms, label F, L1. But we can use the builder here as well. Notice the builder does not show all of the fields and stuff in here because it doesn't know what object you want to work with. So right over here, expression elements, here's blank.accdb. That's the database I'm working with. Forms, just drill down, right? Forms, all forms, label F, L1. Double click on it. See? And it puts it in there for you. Forms, exclamation point, label F, exclamation point, L1. And we've seen this notation before many times. Hit OK. There it is. You could type this in if you want to. All right. The expression again, quote, quote. And then one more time, we're going to throw in a go-to record. All right. Form, label F, new. All right. Save it. I'm going to call this add blank M. All right. It adds a blank, or add blank label M, or whatever you want to call it. Add blank is fine. Now, there's my add blank M right there. Let's make a button that runs this guy X number of times. All right, so let's make a button. Now we can make a button macro to run the other macro. All right, so design, command button, drop it here. Cancel the wizard. Right click, build event, macro builder. And you could turn that automatic wizard thing off too. That's one of my other preferences. But I figured since I'm still teaching this in class, I'll leave it on. All right, so now what do I want to do in here? Now I want this macro to run the other macro, let's say 5 times. All right, so find run macro. There it is. All right, what's the macro we want to run? Well, the macro we want to run is, drop the box down here. And it's add blank M. Let's repeat count 5 times. All right, save that, close it, save changes, yes. Let's open the form back up. All right, I'm going to get rid of these 3 blank records here and click the button. And there we go. See, it ran that 5 times. Now, how do I make it so that the user can specify what that number is instead of just putting 5 in there? Well, let's delete those. Let's go back to design view. Right click, build event. All right, the repeat count value can be a number. It could be a field on the form. So you could make a text box on the form and type in a 5, and it'll run it that number of times. And here you just say forms label F, whatever your field name was. Or you can have the macro ask the user how many labels do you want, and we can use the input box command, right? Equals input box. Open it up. What's the prompt? How many blank labels? Like that. And you can put a title and a default and a whole bunch of other options, but I'm just going to close up the parentheses, and that's all we need, right? Equals input box, how many blank labels. That's a function that you can use to return a value, and the value goes into the repeat count. All right, save that, close it up. I'm going to change the label here, the text on the label, so it says insert blanks. All right, like that. Save it, close it. Open it up. Insert blanks. How many blank labels would you like? I'd like 10, please. Boom. There you go. It inserted 10 blank records. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're ready to go on a new one. Now, if you want to learn how to insert those blank records at the top of the label form, because you've already typed in your records, right, and you don't want to have to sit here and manually cut and paste them, like I showed you, right, we have to insert 2 records, right, and then you have to cut these out and paste them back in and all that stuff. If you don't want to go through that, in my full class, I teach you how to insert blank records at the top of the list. So here's my labels, right? I can click on the Insert Blank at Top button, say give me 5 blanks at the top, and there we go. All right, some additional macro commands. I covered that in my full class. What class is it? Well, it's my Access Expert 32, Expert Level 32 class. I teach you how to do that, how you can have some extra macro commands that inserts blank records at the top of the label sheet. I will also show you how to have a different customer form. Like here's your customer form, right? And you can create a mailing label based on whoever is the current customer. So you click on the Create Mailing Label button, and then boom, it opens up the label sheet and puts that customer at the bottom. Right? You want to do it again, go to a different customer, this customer, boom, and it adds them to the bottom of the list. All right, so I covered those again in my Access Expert 32 class, and I'll put a link to that class in the description below this video. If you want to learn more about macro programming in Microsoft Access, come to my website and look for my Access Advanced series. Now, right now it is June of 2016, and I'm just getting started recording the Advanced series, but give it a couple of months, we'll have a whole bunch of lessons up there for you. Make sure you get on my mailing list, and I'll let you know when new classes are released. I'm expecting the first one in a week or so. So again, that's my Access Advanced classes.